Good afternoon, guys. Now, for discussion D, we are discussing something that happens to a lot of folks who have loved ones at home they are taking care of. We are going to talk about their workplace accepting the fact that they have to take off because their loved one is sick or needs to go to the hospital or have specialty care um, for their condition, and the fact that workplaces are um, very non-supportive of these folks. So I'm going to go through my presentation I made for this subject. Sit back and enjoy, please. Okay. Um, Here we go. American workplaces are hostile to family caregivers. It doesn't have to be this way. Jill didn't think of herself as a caregiver. She thought of herself as a department manager, a mother, a daughter who visited on weekends. But when her father's dementia accelerated, her life split open. Suddenly, she was answering calls from neurologists between meetings, managing medication lists at midnight, and trying to remember the last time she slept through the night. Her employer was sympathetic. Sympathy is cheap, but the structure around her was not. She had no paid leave for elder care, no flexible scheduling, no manager trained to recognize caregiver strain. She burned through vacation days. She rearranged shifts and quietly absorbed the, the message that her father's decline was her private problem, not a workforce reality. Folks, I wish that places would compensate folks when this happens to a family member or a loved one. I hope that me by me doing the show, this might bring it to light for people. This might open some eyes to what really happens in society when someone is a caregiver for a family member and having to leave work because they're sick, because their family member who they're a caregiver for gets sick and needs to go to the hospital or specialized care. So I'm going to, this is why I'm doing this one for everybody's benefit. Okay. Let's see. Leave for elder care. No flexible scheduling. No manager trained to recognize caregiver strain. She burned through vacation days, rearranged shifts, and quietly absorbed the message that her father's decline was her private problem, not a workplace, not a workforce reality. Jill is not an outer She is Jill is not an otter. She is the future of the American workforce. The demographic math is unavoidable. We are aging faster than we are preparing. 10,000 Americans turn 65 every day. Dementia rates are rising. Chronic illness is becoming the norm rather than the exception. And unlikely previous generations today, older adults are living longer with complex medical needs that require hands-on daily support. At the same time, families are smaller, more geographically dispersed, and more economically strained. The caregiving burden is falling on fewer people, and those people are overwhelmingly working. More than 70% of family caregivers are employed. Most are caring for someone with dementia, disability, or chronic illness. And caregiving is not a short term disruption, it lasts an average of 6 years. That that's is long. That is longer than most college degrees, longer than many marriages, longer than the tenure of the average American worker, tenure of the average American worker. Yet our workplace policies still treat caregiving as a brief interruption, something that can be handled with a few vacation days or unpaid family leave that many workers cannot afford to take. This mismatch is not minor. This mismatch is not a minor inconvenience. It's a structural failure. The hostility is baked in. Hostility doesn't always look like punishment. Sometimes it looks like indifference. It looks like unpaid family leave, which forces workers to choose between caregiving and rent. It looks like rigid scheduling that assumes every worker has a healthy family home. It looks like benefits packages that cover frailty treatments and potential leave but ignore elder care entirely. It looks like managers untrained to recognize caregiver strain or offer accommodations. It looks like HR systems that treat elder care as an exception rather than inevitability. It it looks like the quiet shame workers feel when they must ask for help in a system designed to deny it. The hostility is not intentional, it is structural. But structural hostility is still hostility. The economic consequences are enormous and ignored. Businesses often talk about talent, retention, workforce stability, and productivity, yet the one they ignore one of the largest drivers of turnover in the country, caregiving. Caregiving related jobs. Caregiving related job loss costs employers billions annually in absenteeism, reduced productivity, and turnover. When workers leave to care for aging loved ones, employers lose institutional knowledge, team cohesion, and years of experience. This is not a social issue tucked in the margins of HR. It is a core economic threat, and it is hitting every sector. Manufacturing workers caring for spouses with cancer, teachers caring for parents with dementia, nurses caring for disabled siblings. Retail workers caring for grandparents recovering from surgery. The American the American economy is built on the labor of caregivers who are quietly working two jobs. When employers ignore that reality, they lose workers who cannot afford to stay. A few companies are rewriting the rules and providing it's possible. Some employers have stopped waiting for federal reform and started acting. Merck Serono offers 9 weeks of paid caregiver leave, a policy that acknowledges the reality of long duration care. AARP provides paid elder care leave and openly treats caregiving as a normal part of working life. New York Life Group Benefit Solutions helps employers redesign benefits that reflect the 6 year caregiving arc rather than a 6 week fantasy. States with paid family leave have shown that income support during caregiving is not only feasible, it's economically stabilizing. These organizations aren't offering perks, they're building the scaffolding for a modern workforce. Why CEOs should care. This is a talent strategy, not a social program. The companies that adapt will win. The ones that don't will bleed talent. Caregiving is now defining workforce identity. Every industry, from manufacturing to healthcare to finance, is full of employees who are effectively working two jobs. When employers ignore that reality, they lose workers who cannot afford to stay. Supporting caregivers is not a charity, it's workforce retention, productivity, protection, and economic strategy. The most competitive companies in the next decade will be ones that understand this. What employers must do next. Every CEO should be asking one question. What would it take for my employees to care for their families without sacrificing their careers? The answer is not complicated. Paid caregiver leave that covers elder care, not just potential leave or parental leave. Flexible scheduling that reflects the unpredictability of dementia, disability, and chronic illness. Manager training to recognize caregiver strain and, and respond with support rather than suspicion. Integrated benefits, navigation support, respite resources, and care coordination tools. A culture that treats caregiving as normal is not as a culture that treats caregiving as normal, not as a personal failing. These are not luxuries, they are the minimum visible infrastructure for a functioning workforce. The moral truth: caregiving is the work that makes all other work possible. Caregiving is not a private burden, it is a public good. It is, it is the visible labor that allows the rest of the economy to function. Without caregivers, older adults would go without supports. Hospitals would overflow, and families would collapse under the weight of unmet needs. We cannot build a healthy society on the backs of exhausted workers who are caring for aging loved ones in the shadows. We cannot build a competitive economy by pretending caregiving is optional. We cannot build a future that honors aging if we punish those who do the work of caring. The choice ahead. We are entering an era where nearly every worker will be touched by caregiving. The demographic math is unavoidable. The question is whether workplaces will evolve fast enough to meet it. Hostile workplaces are a choice. Supportive ones are too. If we want a stable workforce, a competitive economy, and a society that honors aging rather than punishes those who care for for a for the and aging, then employers must stop treating caregiving as an exception and start treating it as the rule. Because the truth is simple, caregiving is not a personal problem, it's a national one. And national problems deserve national solutions. Okay, guys, those are the shows until after dinner. I will jump back on and do any after dinner. For now, Gator Wellness, take care, folks.